Hello, everyone. Welcome to Encouraging Big Ideas, Having Fun with STEM Play. Your presenters today are myself, Tiffany Bernard, and
Amy Hamley.
And we are both quality and education managers at the Early Learning Coalition, and we're so happy that you decided to spend your afternoon with us. And we hope that we can give you a lot of great big ideas for having fun with STEM play. It is 1:01 right now, so we're just going to give it about 2 more minutes before we start our presentation. Okay, we'll get ready to start. So welcome. We're so happy you could join us. It's time to learn all about STEM. So this is our training overview. We're going to discuss what is early STEM, why is STEM education in early childhood important, how to implement STEM in early childhood education. We're going to discuss STEM in books and reading and tie it all together with connecting the dots. The learning objectives for today, you're going to learn how to support STEM in centers. You are going to learn how to provide materials to plan for STEM activities, and you are also going to learn how to link STEM concepts from books into activities. So now we're going to discuss webinar housekeeping. You are going to click on the orange rectangle with a white arrow pointing right to use your panel. It's either going to be on the right or left side of your screen, and you can see the purple arrow pointing to it. Once you click on that orange rectangle with the white arrow, your panel will extend. You are then going to be able to click on the questions triangle, which is shown below on the panel, to type in any questions or comments that you may have throughout the training. To download the handouts, you're going to click on handouts triangle that's shown below on the panel. We do have 5 handouts for you to download. You are then going to be able to click on the handout section to access those handouts. Once you click on the document, a PDF is going to open, which will allow you to click on the down arrow to download those 5 documents to your computer. So now we're going to talk about attendance, credits, the pre-post test, and evaluation. So please note that all ELC Broward trainings are for in-service hours only. That's 1.5 in-service hours. Your training certificate will be emailed to you within 24 hours and sent to the email address you entered when you registered. In order to be marked as attended, you must log into your computer or download the GoToWebinar app on your phone. Just calling in does not register attendance, and you will not be able to receive a certificate or be marked as attendance. Unfortunately, if you can't see the screen, we are not able to see you. So starting July 1st, what we did was all of our trainings have a pretest of 3 questions to answer when you registered. So when you registered, you answered those 3 questions. Now, upon completion of this training today, a post-test of those 3 same questions will be generated, and a training survey of 5 questions is going to launch. Please complete all of that information.
So what is early STEM? STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. These disciplines have been clustered together because they are closely related to one another and they share a common focus. They each involve gathering and using evidence to create knowledge or to solve problems. So at the preschool level, teachers are presenting children with interactive exploration-based activities that allow them to problem solve, get creative, but most important, have fun. So we'd like to start off today with a little poll. What does early STEM look like in preschool? Is it tinkering, exploration, observing, figuring out how things work, or all of the above? So Tiffany will launch the poll and you can vote. If you notice that you cannot vote, a little trick that we've figured out in our adventures with GoToWebinar is sometimes if you minimize the screen, it will allow you to vote. And if that does not work, please feel free to put your response in the questions box. So what does early STEM look like in preschool? Please select tinkering, exploration, observing, figuring out how things work, or all of the above.
So right now, Amy, it looks like we have 60% of our participants have voted. Those numbers are going up. It's now 70%.
Great, and we do see some responses in the questions box as well.
Okay, we're now at 80%. We'll just give it a few more seconds. And once again, if you're not able to vote using the poll, please put your guess of what early STEM looks like in preschool in the questions box. Okay, so now I am going to close the poll and share those results with you.
Wow. That is wonderful to see that 97% of you voted for the best answer. They're all correct answers because STEM does involve all of these choices. However, the best answer would be all of the above because it does encompass all of it. So thank you for participating. Thank you to those who put their answers in the questions box, which also were all of the above. And thank you, Tiffany, for launching the poll.
My pleasure.
So research shows there is a positive relationship between early STEM experiences and future success in school, which is what we want. So why is it important to teach STEM in preschool? As you all know, because of your day-to-day working with them, preschoolers are naturally curious. They're always asking for information, seeking questions daily, and they're actively trying to solve problems. The earlier that we can help children connect their interest to the exploration of the world around them, the more motivated that they will be to discover those answers. Early experiences shape how the brain gets built. So this is that brain architecture that we're doing. And young children learn through active exploration, making them highly receptive to STEM education. We, as the adults in their lives, can play an important role in arranging the environment for play to make sure that it encourages STEM explorations. You're going to see many examples of that throughout the presentation. So now we're going to watch a video. It's kind of going to give you a preview into what we're going to be digging deep into regarding STEM in preschool. Thank you, Tiffany. So as you can see, there are a lot of aspects of STEM that we will touch upon today and give you some ideas that you can implement in your classrooms.
So thank you, Amy. Now we are going to talk all about the S in STEM, science. So we'd like to start off with a poll. It's what statement about science is true? The first option is children can't understand scientific concepts. Curiosity helps children to be natural observers. Or is it you need deep science knowledge to teach science to children? So I am going to launch the poll now. And once again, if you are not able to vote using the poll, please put your responses into the questions box. Okay, so we're now at 30% voted. Okay, we're at 55% voted, so please keep voting. And once again, if you're not able to vote using the poll, please put your responses into the questions box.
How are we doing, Tiffany?
We are now at 64%, up 65, so it's slowly going up. We're going to give it just another minute, and then I'm going to close the poll. Oh, I see some responses are being entered into the questions box. Thank you. Okay, so now I am going to close the poll. And share those results with all of you. Okay, so it looks like 95% of you feel that curiosity helps children to be natural observers. And also that was the response in the questions box as well. So thank you all for voting. You're absolutely right. Curiosity does help children to be natural observers. As we know, our preschool children are curious. They're active learners. They want to know what is going on, in the environment around them. And that's what really helps them to be observers, because they have that curiosity. They want to know what is going on. So thank you for voting. So what is science in preschool and why is it important? So science involves children in active exploration. Children are natural scientists. Like scientists, they learn from others. They watch what children and adults do, and they learn from trying to repeat what they've seen or by asking questions and seeing the results. Science is all about observing and experimenting, making predictions, sharing discoveries, asking questions, and wondering how things work. We figure out how the world works by engaging in a series of steps called the scientific method, which we are going to talk about in the next few slides. Scientific learning should not be limited to a designated science time during the school day. So really, as teachers, you want to look for opportunities to develop children's understanding of scientific concepts in all learning areas. And to do that, children need to observe things firsthand as much as possible. the scientific method. What is it? So with the scientific method, there are a series of steps. The first step is you're going to ask a question. You're going to help children form their own questions related to their world. Some suggestions of how to do this would be to say, wow, this is very interesting, or you look curious about. I saw you watching. You seem to be fascinated with. Then you're going to help the children observe. You're going to ask children to use their senses and closely observe the world around them. What do you notice? How does that feel, taste, or sound? Look at these different parts of. Let's take a picture so we can look at it again. You're going to help children make predictions. You're going to encourage them to make an educated guess, which we can also think of as a hypothesis, about what will happen in the future. What's your guess? What do you imagine? I wonder what might happen if. How do you think this will turn out? You're going to help your children conduct experiments. You're going to provide opportunities for children to experiment and test their predictions out. So some suggestions for that is you can say, let's try this out. We can check out, what could we do to see if this is true? How could we keep track of how things change? And then comes the discussion. You're going to allow children to discuss the results of their experiment. What did we learn about? How is this different or the same from when we started? Which grew the fastest, the longest, the heaviest? Why? Was your prediction correct? How do you know? So these were all just some suggestions of how you can really use all of those steps in the scientific method. And now we're going to see 3 different scenarios of how you can use the scientific method in everyday activities. It doesn't have to be a specific planned science activity. You can use the scientific method really with anything and any activity that you have. So for scenario 1, a child enters the classroom after being outdoors and notices a burr stuck to her pant leg. You can help the child generate questions. Oh, look at that. If the children don't generate their own questions, model for them by generating your own. I wonder, what is making that burr stick to your jean? You're going to help them observe. Maybe when we go outside this afternoon, we can search and find another burr. You're going to help them make those predictions. Which plant do you think will have burrs? Next comes experimentation. Let's try this out. And last we have discussion. Did it stick? Why do you think that? Let's write that down. For the next scenario, you have a child rolls a tennis ball down the slide and says, it went down. First, you're going to help the child generate questions. That ball went down really fast. If the children don't ask questions, once again, you're going to model. What made the ball roll down so fast? You're going to help them observe. Roll it again, and let's see how fast the ball goes down the slide this time. You're going to help with those predictions. What do you think will happen if we roll this basketball down the slide? Then you're going to have that experiment. Let's test it out. And then comes the discussion. Why don't you draw a picture of what happened? Last, we have scenario 3, which could be an art area cutting activity. You're going to be cutting paper with children. So you're going to first help them generate questions. Do these shapes stay the same when we cut them into smaller pieces? And then once again, if the children don't ask questions, model by asking your own question. I wonder what will happen if I cut my paper this way. Then you're going to help them observe. Wow, look what happens when I cut the square in half. Then comes the predictions. What shape do you think the paper will be if I cut it in half? What if I cut it another way? What will happen? Then comes the experimentation. Can you cut your paper in half? Can you cut it another way? And last, you have the discussion. Isn't that cool? When we cut it the first way, we got rectangles. When we cut it the second way, we have 2 triangles. So you can see these are 3 different activities, and you were able to use the scientific method with each activity. It's not just specifically for science. It can be applied through various activities throughout the day. So when young children investigate their environment, they experience the satisfaction that can come from investigation, discovery, and solving problems, which is what we want to do. We want to encourage them to investigate, to be curious, to explore, and then to be able to solve problems. So now let's watch a video about science. It's called Coconut.
Okay, Avian, ready? Up.
Now we're going to explore this item a little more.
Do you feel it?
Close your eyes.
Okay.
We're
Release
going
it.
to bite you. Don't worry, it's not alive. Don't say it. Don't say it.
What do you think it is?
Don't say it. What do you think it might be?
Did you touch it?
Close your eyes.
Pokey?
A porcupine.
No peeking.
Porcupine.
Do you feel it?
Okay, put this back around. And then we'll take some guesses. Close your eyes, friend.
Are you going to take it out?
I will take it
Pokey.
out.
Was it cold or hot?
Hot. No, it has grass in it.
Does anyone
Oh, you think it has grass in it? I wonder what it is. Kiara said
Just like the
she
song
feels
said,
like it has
coconut.
grass in it. Was it soft or hard? It was hard. Was it smooth?
It's a porcupine.
Was it smooth?
I know it's a porcupine.
You think it's a porcupine? You think there's an animal in here? A porcupine is an animal. You ready to see what's in here? Ready? Everybody help me count.
Let's see.
1, 2, 3. A coconut. And Kiara said she felt like it was a little bit grassy, and it does kind of feel like grass or weeds, doesn't it?
Yeah, it has like a little hair on it. It's kind of,
Okay, if you're done, you can pass it on to your next friend.
okay, let's pass the card. You want to hold it or no?
What do you notice about the coconut?
That hurts my eye.
Okay, you don't have to use it. You could just use your eyes and look at it and touch at it.
We are. Pass it to science.
Did you notice anything about it?
Here, science.
Is it smooth?
Magnifying glass?
It has did you notice that it has lots of lines?
We all did
It's kind of hairy, isn't it?
So I have a question while we pass it around. I have a question
It's
while
coming.
we pass it around.
It's coming.
gonna eat it?
You think we should eat it? Shake it. Get up. Can you hear anything in there? Water? She thinks there's water inside of the coconut. Let's pass it around.
White stuff in there.
White stuff. Have you seen a coconut on the inside before?
Me too. I think it's
Coconut.
the color.
Look, sit down. Come see. What's inside?
Water.
Watch this. We're going to try both kinds.
They got the water.
Oh. So everybody get your cup. Get your cup and we'll taste the coconut water. You can grab another one. You can get. Okay. So I'm going to leave this magnifying glass and the coconut, and you guys can explore. You can look on the inside. You can touch it. You can peel the shell, or you can be done and you can.
So let's think about what we saw in that video. We saw a lot of observing taking place. Children were exploring the outside and the inside of the coconut with magnifying glasses. They got to touch it. They talked about the texture. They talked about what it felt like. They got to taste the coconut and taste the coconut water. They got to listen to it. Once the teacher shook it, they used their magnifying glasses. They used their hands to explore the coconut. They got to make predictions about what they thought the object was based on texture. So the teacher got to use some of those steps of the scientific method. She could have actually taken it a little bit further by even saying, what tools do you think will open the coconut? And then they could have guessed which tools and then actually tested it out. But you did get to see some parts of that scientific method being used by the observations that were taking place and those predictions that the children made about what that was. So now Amy is going to talk to us about the T in STEM.
Thank you, Tiffany. So the T in STEM stands for technology. And once again, we're going to start this section with a poll. Is a pencil an example of technology? Yes or no? So Tiffany is going to launch the poll and you can vote for whether you think a pencil is an example of technology by selecting yes or no. And again, if you're unable to vote, please go ahead and put your response in the questions box.
Well, Amy, we have voting happening quickly this time. We have, we're at 50% voted.
That's great.
Please keep voting. Once again, if you can't vote using the poll, please put your guess of being a pencil being an example of technology, yes or no, in the questions box. We're going to give it a few more seconds so you can continue with the voting. Okay. And we are going to now close the poll and share the results.
Okay, so we have a 69% versus 33% vote that a pencil is an example of technology. But I'm going to tease you all a little bit. I'm not going to give you the correct answer yet. In a couple more slides, we'll come back to that. So what is technology in preschool? Technology for young children includes integrating tools to support their work. And we have different types of tools that can be used in technology. So we have simple pulleys, wheels, levers, hammers, ramps, scissors, spoons, and even crayons, to more sophisticated items such as digital cameras or tablets or other electronic devices. So these support children's cognitive development because as children are playing with the tools, they observe and they learn from cause and effect. Simple technologies allow children to understand how the tool helps them to accomplish a task. When used appropriately, technology can be used to support children's play in the classroom. And some of the things that technology can foster in children is creating, building, designing, and exploring. Children can use technology hardware as play materials, and they can also use some open-ended software apps. I know when we hear the word technology, we automatically think of electronic devices, but as we're seeing, that's not necessarily the case. We do incorporate electronic devices into technology, but simple tools are also considered technology. Technology can link to science and math. Now, we've already talked a little bit about science, and we're going to be speaking on math later in the presentation, but some of the items that are tools for technology sometimes are seen in your science and math areas, so there's some overlap. These are magnifying glasses, eyedroppers, tongs, funnels, sifters, pencils, and paper to write and draw. Digital photographs. So there's your answer. Pencils are technology. Balancing scales, thermometers, wind wheels, measuring cups and spoons, rulers, measuring tape, string, timers, mirrors, and interlocking cubes. Technology is also linked to engineering because children can use their tools and design their own tools to then solve problems. So we would like for you to take a moment and look at the pictures on this slide, and we're going to have a reflection activity. The reflection question is, how do you see technology being used in these pictures specifically? And we would like for you to put your responses in the questions box. So the top picture, we see a child who is painting. And in the picture below that one, we see a child using scissors to cut paper. So how do you see technology being used in either or both? You can respond into the questions box for either both pictures, or you can choose one and respond.
So Amy, we see that someone said that they see technology being used in both pictures. With the first picture, with the girl using a paint brush to paint, and with the boy using scissors to cut. They're using these items to perform a task easier using the tools in the picture.
Very good. I see a lot of the responses where yes, there's pretty much a consensus that both pictures are a clear example of technology in use because the children are using simple tools to conduct their activity. So yes, great reflection. Thank you so much for participating and for being able to detect how children use technology in the classroom.
Thank you, Amy. So now we're going to talk all about the E in STEM, engineering. So what is engineering in preschool? Engineering is a way of doing. Engineering applies science, math, and technology to solving problems. Engineering is using a variety of materials, designing, creating, crafting, and building. It helps us understand how and why things work. Preschool children can begin to understand engineering concepts as they design, build, and test solutions through their play. As they put together those railroad tracks and they build cities out of blocks, they are acting as engineers. They can begin to understand that tools, like Amy was talking about, help people do things better or more easily, or to do things that could not otherwise be done at all. That's what they use those tools for. Young children can problem solve during their play. So teachers can really promote that development of those problem solving and critical thinking skills through planning these intentional opportunities and these intentional activities that can really support the children in their thinking and in that brain development. Okay. So now we're going to talk about maker spaces. So even as you can see with the sign, you have a lot of different materials that were used to make the sign. So when you look at that, just keep that in mind. These are all things that you can use during those activities that you engage in with your children for those fun activities. So keep that in mind, because you can see a variety of things like the pom-poms and the foil and the popsicle sticks and the clothespins and the Legos and the feathers. These are all things that you can use. So what is the child's role? Well, it involves tinkering, which is using stuff. It's open-ended, there's exploration of tools and materials, and it combines play and inquiry. There's making, which is using stuff to make stuff that sometimes does stuff, but sometimes it's just really cool. That begins with an end product in mind. So you already think you know what it is that you want to do. And engineering is just using stuff to make stuff that does stuff. So engineering begins with a problem to solve, and you're going to use the engineer design process to solve it. And we are going to explore what the engineer design process is in the next few slides. So what is the teacher's role? So as teachers, you want to provide a variety of materials. You want to help children to problem solve by encouraging thinking through open-ended questions. You want to give children time to design, build, and test their products. You want to help children to fix the mistakes they will make, and they will make mistakes, and that's okay, to new discoveries on their own and use trial and error during the creation process. And STEM really is all about trial and error. They're trying things out, they're testing their solutions, they're making those predictions to see if things work. And if they don't, what are they going to do to fix that problem? How are they going to make it work? And teach children how to safely use the real tools and closely monitor them when in use. So as teachers, you're going to want to establish rules for how to use these tools and help children see why it's important to follow these rules and manage risks, because you do want to give them the opportunity to use real tools, but to use them safely. Okay. So now we're going to talk about displaying materials. So you saw that sign before that said makerspace. So makerspace is a great area that you can have to basically make stuff. And I'm going to tell you exactly what goes in a makerspace in a little bit. But you can see all of these different materials out here. Young children learn best when they can interact with concrete materials and make connections to experiences from their own lives, really. They need to be able to observe and interact with these materials during activities. Your makerspace area is a place that has materials that are intentionally placed for that making. The introduction of materials in the space could be done in a small group discussion with your students that includes a demonstration of how to properly use those materials and care for them. Circle time is a great time to do this. Your maker spaces should be organized so children can easily see all the materials that they have available. So as you can see in that first picture, it says, what will you make? And there are clear plastic containers that have a variety of materials that children can use. You have those children, if you really need to utilize space in the classroom because you don't have a lot of space, you can have, they get attached a bar that goes across and they put tape there so children can easily access that tape. And you see they're using a tool. I wonder what tool it is they're using to cut that tape. And then once again, to utilize that space, if you don't have a lot of space, you can have one of those rolling carts that you label that has all of those different materials in it that are easily accessible to children. And you can even have them sketch out their drawings beforehand, which is really important and a part of that planning process. The items that you find in a makerspace are really similar items found in your art center or even sometimes a science center. So you can have these areas set up next to each other to really make use of those common materials and make it easier to access. Okay. So what materials can be found in a makerspace? So some tools that can be found in a makerspace would include child safety goggles, measuring tapes, rulers, scissors, funnels, child size hammers. You can use pliers and screwdrivers. Those are just some examples. And you really want to encourage children to build whatever they'd like with those materials. For building, you have a variety of different things like popsicle sticks, straws, pipe cleaners. For connecting, those would be how can you make your objects stick together. So that could be a variety of tapes like masking tape, duct tape, cellophane, staplers, glue sticks, beads, string, binder clips. You have sculpting. You can have modeling clay, Play-Doh, and you have those tools, once again, like rolling pins or plastic knives. You have mixing tools. Those can include things like plastic bowls, spoons. You can have your fabrics and decoration, things like pom-poms and feathers and buttons. You can have those writing materials so that you can plan out what it is that you want to sketch and what product you want to have, such as markers and pens and pencils and crayons. And then you can also have electronics and technology. Those are batteries, and you can keep those in a battery holder, and you can have flashlights. One thing to note about electronics and technology, when we think of technology, we think of all the wonderful things that we have. You learned about some new technology, or things like those tools that you use, but also really technology is used to support the learning. It's used to enhance the learning. So when you think of things like digital cameras or iPads, we really want to use those to support the children's learning. So to enhance their learning by taking pictures of their products and that process that they have of creating their product. So as you can see on the bottom, you have a variety of ways that you can display those materials. We talked before about those plastic jars, but you can also have trays where the children can easily access those materials and see what it is that they want to use for their project that they're going to make. Okay. And then here are some Makerspace creations. You can see that they used a variety of different materials to make their creations. So now we're going to talk about the design engineering process. What does that look like? So the first thing you want to do is identify the problem. So what is the problem that needs to be solved? Does something need to be fixed or does it need to be improved? How can it be better? So an example of this could be, how can we get materials from one place to another more efficiently? Then you want to brainstorm solutions. You want to generate ideas for different ways the problem can be solved. So you want to ask questions to help children come up with those ideas. A way to do this, for example, would be go back and forth between locations. Try using a blanket to carry the materials, build a wagon, make a box. Then you want to actually build the model. So here's your chance to pick one of those ideas and create it. You as the teachers might need to provide materials for this step. So an example of this would be using pieces of cardboard from the recycling area to build a box. Next, you want to try it out. You want to try out your solution and test your model. An example of this could be put the materials into the box and try pushing it from one place to another. Then you want to refine your model. Now that you've tried out your model, why does it work? Or why doesn't it work? What do you need to do? What improvements can you make? An example of this would be, you can say, oops, the bottom fell off. How can we fix this? And then your children will say, let's put some more tape on it, find a stronger bottom. If they don't come up with those questions, remember, you want to model for them. I wonder how we can fix this, and then maybe hold that tape in front. What can we use this for? And then last, you want to share your solution. You want to tell us how the problem was solved. What solution did you come up with and how did it work? You want to take pictures of the box and put them on display or have peers tell a story about it in circle. So you want to make sure that they have that opportunity to share their solutions. So now we're going to watch a video about engineering. It's called The Three Little Pigs. So you can guess exactly what this will be about. So some really great takeaways from that video is that you don't have to set aside extra time in the day to address STEM concepts. You can integrate STEM into your daily routines. You want to be able to give children opportunities to explore during that hands-on exploration and experimentation. Books are great. They're a great way to enhance early STEM experiences, and we're going to talk about that later. You need to use the scientific method and teach them that things fail, which is okay. You want to learn how to problem solve. And working in teams is wonderful. It helps build those interpersonal skills, and look at the variety of materials that you can use to build things like those houses, like the Play-Doh, the pipe cleaners. You saw the children test it out and they tried it. So these are great ways that you can see engineering taking place during that activity. So now we would like to share a book with you about early STEM engineering. It's called The Most Magnificent Thing by Ashley Spears. So The Most Magnificent Thing follows a young girl and her best friend as she attempts to create the most magnificent thing. Join her as she finds out that creating something magnificent means making mistakes along the way. So this is a regular girl and her best friend in the whole wide world. They do all kinds of things together. They race, they eat, they explore, they relax. She makes things, he unmakes things. One day, the girl has a wonderful idea. She is going to make the most magnificent thing. She knows just how it will look. She knows just how it will work. All she has to do is make it, and she makes things all the time, easy peasy. First, she hires an assistant. Next, they gather their supplies. They set up somewhere out of the way and get to work. The girl tinkers and hammers and measures while her assistant pounces and growls and chews. When she is finished, she steps back to admire her work. She walks around one side. Her assistant examines the other side. It doesn't look quite right. Her assistant picks it up and gives it a shake. It doesn't feel right either. They are shocked to discover that the thing isn't magnificent or good. It isn't even sort of okay. It is all wrong. The girl tosses it aside and gives it another go. She smooths and wrenches and fiddles. Her assistant circles and tugs and wags. When she is finished, she stands up and takes a long look at it. Her assistant gives it a nudge with his paw. The thing is still wrong. She decides to try again. The girl saws, glues, and adjusts. She stands, examines, and stares. She twists and tweaks and fastens. She fixes and straightens and studies. She tries all different ways to make it better. She makes it a square. She makes it round. She gives it legs. She adds antennae. She makes it fuzzy. She makes it long, short, rough, smooth, big, small. One even smells of stinky cheese, but none of them are magnificent. Her hard work attracts a few admirers, but they just don't understand. They can't see the magnificent thing she has in her mind. She gets mad. The angrier she gets, the faster she works. She smashes pieces into shapes. She jams parts together. She pummels the pieces in. Her hand feels too big to work and her brain is too full of all the not right things. If only the thing would just work. Oh, crunch. The pain starts in her finger. It rushes up to her brain and she explodes. It is not her finest moment. I'm no good at this. I quit. Her assistant suggests a walk. It's not much help at first, but before long, she starts to feel different. Bit by bit, the mad gets pushed out of her head. As they stroll along, she comes across the first thing she made. The bad feelings are about to start all over again. Then she notices something surprising. There are some parts of the wrong thing that are really quite right. The bolts on one, the shape of another, the wheel to seat ratio of the next. There are all sorts of parts that she likes. By the time she reaches the end of the trail, she finally knows how to make that thing magnificent. She gets to work. She works carefully and slowly, tinkering, hammering, twisting, fiddling, gluing, and painting. Her assistant makes sure there are no distractions. The afternoon fades into evening, and finally she finishes. She alerts her assistant. The pair take a good long look. It leans a little to the left, and it's a bit heavier than expected. The color could use a bit of work too, but it's just what she wanted. They climb aboard and take it for a spin. They are not disappointed. It really is the most magnificent thing. So, as you can see, this is a really great story to illustrate that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to get mad that you made that mistake, but guess what? You start to plan and you try again. And now we do have a handout that goes along with this book that gives you all of the definitions for each of the words used in this book. So you can use that when you read the story to teach those children about those different vocabulary terms. So here are some examples of just some of the magnificent things that children made to go along with the story. So as you can see that they used a lot of different materials to make those magnificent things. And there's even a movie. So we do have the Most Magnificent Thing official trailer that you can see. You can see the YouTube link below. You can take a picture and you'll be able to watch that official trailer of the movie. So now Amy is going to talk all about the M in STEM.
And the M in STEM stands for math. So we have a math poll now. Which statement about math is true? Young children can't solve mathematical problems. Math can be embedded in almost all daily activities, or young children must sit down to learn math. So please, Tiffany, launch the poll, and everyone, please put in your votes. And if you can't vote on the poll, just go ahead and put your responses in the questions box. Which statement about math is true? Young children can't solve mathematical problems. Math can be embedded in almost all daily activities, or young children must sit down to learn math.
So we are at 36% voted. We're now at 50%. We are now at 65%. Okay, we'll give it another few seconds and then we'll close the poll. And as Amy said, if you are not able to vote using the poll, please put your responses in the questions box. And we are closing the poll now and sharing those results with you.
Great, so 92% voted that math can be embedded in almost all daily activities, which is true. So what is math in preschool? Math is a part of our everyday world, and children use mathematics regularly during their play, so it's guided by self-discovery. At the preschool level, the foundations of understanding math are shaped out of children's real-world experiences and through planned activities. Math involves number and operations, measurement, patterns, geometry, and spatial sense. So mathematical experiences should not be limited to math time. They can be embedded in almost all daily classroom activities, which is what our poll was about. So there doesn't have to be a specific math time where children have to sit down to learn math. This can happen throughout the day in many activities. Mathematical thinking can be incorporated into block play, dramatic play, sand and water play, and even outdoor play. Children can also make connections between mathematics and musical experiences or art when they're exploring things such as patterns and symmetry. Math often goes hand in hand with both science and engineering. So it gives the language to share their findings of investigations and problems. Preschool children can learn to recite numbers in order, compare quantity, understand position, and match objects in one-to-one correspondence. They can begin comprehending number concepts, which then builds the foundation for them to understand characteristics and properties of 2- and 3-dimensional geometric shapes. Number concepts become important to children when they develop out of their experiences that are functional in their world. So it makes me think a little bit about when we say, you know, what do I need math for? And back in the day, how we were all taught math, it just seemed a little bit irrelevant, but making sure that these experiences are relevant to children's lives is how they're going to embrace math. And here we have a couple of pictures that show how math looks in the preschool classroom with these concepts we just discussed. We also wanted to provide you with an opportunity to look at these pick a problem cards. So these are prompts that are useful to have in the classroom for children. They can be used either individually or in small group activities. And these are obviously commercially made, but these are examples. You can make your own pick a problem card, print it out, laminate it, and have it in the classroom for children to use. So here we have an example for estimation. How many blocks can you stack before they fall? For patterning, can you make a pattern using crayons? For sorting, group yourselves by the color of your shoes. How many are in each group? That's a great activity to do when you know the children have been sitting for a while and you want them to kind of get up and, you know, move around and get the blood flowing. It's a great kind of little brain break. For number sense, how many letters are in your name? For measurement, how can you find an object that is the same length as your hand? So there's a lot of activities that you can do with the materials you already have in your classroom. They're very simple and quick. And this last one with the measurement, we're actually going to have a video that incorporates this concept and develops the activity. So you don't even need the material because your hand is the material. Here's a quote that we wanted to share that kind of encompasses what we've been discussing. Through unstructured exploration, we foster the development of imagination and creativity. And this is by Beth Rosenthal Davis. And here's our video about math measurement using hands.
Do you guys have hands? Who else has a hand? Now, if we look at this hand and we look at our own hands, which one is bigger? Which one is bigger? This hand. Oh, but if we look at my hand, which one is bigger, this hand or my hand? This hand. Now, if we look at your hand, which one is the biggest? Which one is the smallest?
Mine.
Which one's in between?
Just
Oh, okay. Whose hand is that?
A giant hand.
A giant hand. It reminds me of the hand we saw here. And whose hand is this? Whose hand do you think this might be?
Yours.
You're right. It's my hand. I traced it. And what I want us to try now today, my friends, you're right. I got it out and I put the marker and I traced all around. And what I want to do with you is trace your hands.
Okay. Okay, so now we see how this simple activity using just paper with drawings of different hands and using the children's own hands, they were able to develop this math concept of measuring. And there was also a book linked to it. So just to piggyback on, Tiffany's earlier comment about how all of this can also be linked to books, and she's going to go over that a little bit before we end our presentation in the next few slides. But we also want to talk about how we can incorporate STEM into the different learning centers. Play is often talked about as if it were a relief from serious learning, but for children, play is serious learning. Play is the work of childhood, and this is a quote by our beloved Fred Rogers that we wanted to share because it's very applicable to STEM and incorporating STEM into our preschool classrooms.
Thank you, Amy. So now we want to talk about STEM in learning centers, specifically blocks. So we have an activity for you, and all these activities that we discuss have a book that is inspired, that these activities are inspired by. So you're going to create a tall building using several different materials. It's inspired by Iggy Peck Architect by Andrea Beatty. So there's a variety of materials that you can use. There's reusable resources like boxes and cartons, craft sticks. There's connectors, those things that hold it all together, like tape, glue, binder clip. There's tools like scissors, measuring tapes. There's pictures of buildings that will help children get an idea of the different buildings that they could create. And of course, paper, markers, crayons, or pencils to sketch out what they want to do. So first you're going to think about it. What kind of building will you make? What will it look like? Have your children draw their ideas. Build it or create it. Gather materials and construct the building. Try it. Does the building stand up on its own? Revise it or make it better. Does it work? If not, what can you do to make the building better, stronger, or more stable? And share. Tell someone about your building and what it is. Who would use it and what would they use it for? Some questions or comments that you could ask. What other materials could you use to create a building? I see you made a pattern in your building with long or short straws, big or little boxes. How can you keep your building from falling? Which part of your building do you think is the strongest? Why do you think so? And then you can see the different materials in both of the pictures that were used to create their buildings. And then of course, they can each be linked to several STEM concepts from science, technology, engineering, and math. So now we're going to look at STEM in art. So the activity that we wanted to share with you is called Box It. You're going to use cardboard boxes to create something new. It's inspired by the book Not a Box by Antoinette Portis. So the materials that you would use could be reusable resources like boxes of different sizes and shapes, cardboard, bottle caps, those connectors, tape, glue, scissors, and pliers would be some of the tools you could use, and several different items for decorating like yarn, string, pom-poms, feathers. And then of course the paper and markers, crayons, or pencils. And then you're going to think about it. What will you make with the cardboard boxes? How will you create it? What materials do you need? Build or create it. You're going to gather your materials, make and decorate your box creation. Try it. Use your Not a Box. Revise it or make it better. How does your creation do what you want it to do? If not, how can you change it? and you're going to share. Ask a friend to guess what you created with your box or boxes. Now you're going to ask questions or make comments. I wonder what you could make with this cardboard box. I wonder what would happen if. How does the bunny, and this is the bunny from the Not a Box book, use his imagination? How did you use yours? What are some other ways the bunny could use a single box? And you can see the pictures on the right. These are just some examples of the children's box creations. And then, of course, you have the STEM concepts that could be applied. So now the next learning center we want to talk about is science. There's an activity called Float Your Boat. You can use foil to build a boat that floats, and it's inspired by the book Who Sank the Boat by Pamela Allen. So there's several different materials you can use, reusable resources like aluminum foil, tools like scissors, measuring tape, objects that sink or float like pennies, marbles, different size balls. You have a large container of water. And then you want to think about it. How are boats shaped? Look at the materials. How can you form them into a boat that will float? Draw your ideas. You're going to build or create it. Build your boat. What shape do you think will work best? You're going to try it out. Does your boat float? If not, does it sink at once or over time? Why do you think this happened? You're going to revise it or make it better. If it doesn't float, what do you think the reason is? What can you do to change it? And you're going to share it. You're going to explain to a friend how you made your boat float. And you're going to test those results out. Then you're going to ask those questions and comments. Which objects do you think will float? Which will sink? Test your predictions. You can add pennies to your boat one at a time. How many pennies can you add to your boat before it sinks? I wonder what would happen if you used wet pennies instead of dry pennies. What shape do you think will make the best boat for floating and moving through the water? And then you can see all of the different materials that were used and what that finished product would look like of a boat that has the pennies in it, and all of the different STEM concepts that are applied during the activity. Another activity we wanted to share with you is during the math center. So this would be "and the survey says." So you can use surveys to collect data. You can choose any book or topic of interest. You can use materials like clipboards, crayons, pencils, and pre-made or blank surveys. So what to do? In advance, you're going to create pre-made surveys for the children to conduct. For example, did you like the book Duck Rabbit? Yes or no. Do you have a pet? Yes or no. And you can make copies available in the Math Center. You can explain that a survey is a smaller graph on paper that they can then use to ask children questions and show the pre-made surveys. You can also explain to them, if you do question of the day, that this is just like question of the day, but you're asking it to a few friends instead of the whole class. And you can ask those questions and comments. Tell me something you learned from one of the surveys. Which answer has more, which has less? And then on the right, you can see different examples of some surveys. So the first survey incorporates a graph built in where they would color yes or no for each of those yes or no's. And then also on the bottom, you have, do you like the book Yes or Rabbit? They can use tally marks for yes and no.
So a way to incorporate STEM into dramatic play would be an activity such as creating a restaurant. And the book I Have a Restaurant by Ryan Afromsky is the inspiration for this activity. And you can see there the materials that you can use, which are the materials that typically are found in your classroom in the dramatic play area. And you can ask questions such as, what kind of restaurant would you like to create? What kind of food would you like to serve? What do you want to name the restaurant? And then have the children think about props that they need, ask them to draw their ideas on chart paper, and allow them to create their restaurant. You could talk about how the restaurant is being designed and ask them, I wonder if there's anything else that we need for our restaurant. And here you have some pictures of different types of restaurants. There's a smaller, kind of like a pizza place with a brick oven pizza that was made from recyclable materials. And in a kind of a smaller space. And then you have a larger space where they have like tables and chairs, a cashier to check out after they have had their meal. For music and movement, an activity inspired by the book Mr. Brown Can Moo, Can You by Dr. Seuss, with just the book, chart paper, and a marker. You can, during center time, read the book and have the chart paper drawn out with 4 columns labeled with these headings. What did you hear? What type of sound? What made the sound? And movements and sound. And then you're going to explain to your students that you're going to fill in the chart and ask them to share a sound that they remembered from reading the book. You're going to make sure you record all the children's responses on the chart and then continue to look at the book, make the sounds from the book, and try to guess what made that sound. And here's what the chart would look like. So for example, if the sound is moo moo, what type of sound is it? It's an animal sound. What makes the sound? A cow. And what movements goes with that sound? The children can stand like a cow. And so forth and so on with the other sounds that they remembered from the reading. And there are some of the STEM concepts that this activity links to. We can also take STEM outdoors in different ways. We chose for you as an activity, an example, something inspired by Shadows and Reflections by Tana Hoban. And basically for this, all you need is sidewalk chalk. If you have a digital camera or you want to take out your cell phone to take pictures, that's optional, but really all you need is the sidewalk chalk. And you would need, for it to be done on a sunny day, you can have children work in pairs. While one child stands, another one poses and stands and poses, and the other child draws with the sidewalk chalk the tracing of the shadow. They can then take turns and put their names inside the shadow, because you're going to come back later in the day to compare what happened to their shadows from earlier. You can also then take the picture with the digital camera or your cell phone to have it recorded. So questions you may want to ask: what happened to your shadow? Is it the same size as it was this morning? Do you remember where the sun was this morning? Is it in the same place now? And you can trace the shadows again and then predict what's going to happen when you come back outside tomorrow at the same time. Hopefully it won't rain and wash it all away, so be on the lookout for that. But here are the STEM concepts that it can also link to. This is a list. It's a simple list of everyday materials that support STEM thinking. Please feel free to take a picture of it so that you can have it. Again, talking about prompts for children in building cards with challenges. Here are some ideas that you can incorporate. We see charts, and we also see little cards that are looped. Again, these are things that you can find on Pinterest, Google, print it out, laminate it, and then depending on your space, you can choose to either make it a chart and post it on the wall, or you can have the little loops that hold the cards together. And these provide children with ideas on things that they can build. And that can be in the block area, that can be in the manipulatives area of the classroom. This is some more examples of the same, but we want to just bring some attention to blueprints and the importance of having blueprints. Blueprints are great for children to get ideas on building. You can ask somebody if they have maybe a general contractor or an architect. Maybe even the layout for your center would work as a blueprint, or you can always print out from the internet. But you want to make sure that you have good materials displayed for children to be able to build with, not just the blocks, but also additional materials that they can add on to their designs and their buildings, their structures.
So STEM explorations can support critical and logical thinking, problem solving, and literacy development. And we're now going to talk about that literacy development. STEM in books and reading. So choosing the right STEM books. So almost any book can be related to STEM, and you can start a discussion by asking, what do you notice about the 2 cars? How many are in the box? What do you think will happen? There's several things to consider when you're selecting STEM-related books for young children. Is it fun to read? Do you like it? Do you think the children will like it? Is it captivating? Is it a good story? Is the book available in the languages spoken by the children? Does the book match the children's developmental level and interest? Remember, you don't want to choose something that's too high level for them. You want it to be at their level and something that they would like. And you want to make sure that they can see themselves represented. So choose books that children can see characters of different races, cultures, sexes engaging in those STEM-related activities. And choose both fiction and nonfiction books as a way to introduce and discuss these STEM concepts so children can really make those connections. So here are some sample STEM books for you, and we do have a more extensive list as one of the handouts that contains all of these books plus several more. So some examples of this would be Ida Twist Scientist, When I Build with Blocks, Have Fun, Molly Lou Mellon. So some everyday language that supports them thinking. It would be great for you to take a picture of this. There's observe, there's things like what do you hear? How are they different? There's questions, what are you curious about? Are you wondering if? There's predict, what do you think will happen? How can we find out? There's explore, experiment, let's investigate, let's draw what we see, and there's discuss. What happened? What did you notice? What can we investigate next?
So something that we want to leave you with is the teacher's self-reflection checklist. And we want to encourage you to reflect on your own practice as a teacher when you're working with children, incorporating STEM, asking yourself some of the questions that are listed here. Do I take time to think about my teaching practice? Do I observe my children and take notes? Do I wonder why activities or interactions go or don't go as planned? We talked earlier about how children can make mistakes and they're going to learn from those mistakes. We too, as adults, are learning from our mistakes, but we have to take the time to reflect and think about how we got there and what can we improve. Do I notice and modify activities based on prior experiences? Do I ask children to make predictions? And do I document their predictions? Do I model how to make I wonder if statements and document children's I wonder if statements? Here's a quote by John Dewey that kind of summarizes this. We do not learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. So we want to connect the dots. Preschool children are naturally engaging in STEM learning every day as they explore, play, and try new things. Educators can encourage children's development of STEM skills by providing learning opportunities and materials that support exploration and discovery. When children work on a task on their own, they have the opportunity to experiment, correct mistakes, and develop their own strategies. Select STEM-related books that are not only fun to read, but match the children's developmental level and interests as well. And we learn by reflecting on our teaching experiences. Please take a picture of our contact information. Tiffany and myself, we are quality and education managers at the Early Learning Coalition of Broward. You can reach out to us for anything related to the content of today's presentation or any other issue that you may have. If we don't have the answer for you, we will find someone who does. We hope that you enjoyed today's webinar. And again, we want to leave you with a few quotes. The future belongs to the curious, the ones who are not afraid to try it, explore it, poke at it, question it, and turn it inside out. I just added the upside down. Here are our references. Again, I encourage you to take a picture. There's always additional materials that obviously we couldn't put into our 1.5 hour presentation that just went over a few moments, but please feel free to go into these references and you will find additional resources. Just as a friendly reminder that your certificate will be emailed to you most likely later today. Please, if you have not already done so, download your handouts. If for whatever reason you were unable to download a handout or there's something that from the presentation that you're specifically curious about, please reach out to us and we will be happy to provide you with whatever resource it is. And don't forget that at the end of this webinar, when we close out, you will see our post-test and training evaluation will be generated. Please, we encourage you to provide us with that information.
So just remember, everything starts with an idea. And you can see the 3 children are smiling. They're each wearing thinking caps. One's a thinker, one has the thinking cap, and one has an ideometer. And then this is just a book, and it is in your book list. It's What Do You Do with an Idea? It's a book that captures how to encourage ideas, how if you nurture an idea, how it can grow. And there is a link down here if you want to watch it being read on YouTube. Okay, so now we'd like to share a quote with you by Brene Brown.
We are born makers.
We move what we're learning.
From our heads.
To our hearts.
Through our hands.
So we'd like to thank you for joining us today. We hope that you learned quite a bit about STEM and the different ways that you can incorporate STEM throughout your daily routine and the importance of using books to really illustrate those STEM concepts, and that the big takeaway that it's okay for children to make mistakes. STEM is really all about that trial and error. So thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Goodbye.